But my question is, where does this cross back into pseudoscience? And how do you know that your experts are really experts? Did we learn anything? We're gonna have to keep our wits about us. Picture the scene. It's 2013, I've just started uni and I've moved into halls. My weekly shop is done at Chapel Market where I buy all my fruit and veg, and then I go to Sainsbury's to get my grains. When I want a working lunch, I spend 20 minutes in prep trying to pick out the most healthy meal. I won't choose bread or anything less than half veggies. I eat vegan 90% of the time, I sometimes eat fish, and I avoid dairy like the plague. Does this sound extreme? And why did it feel so normal to me? The answer is the steady diet of clean eating content that I've been consuming for the past few years. I followed influencers who ate clean, and I must have watched hundreds of what I eat in a day videos. So what was the clean eating movement? Where did it come from? And where did it go? And what is clean eating's legacy? Have we moved on from clean eating, or have we repackaged the diet into new formats? I'm here to investigate. Little note before we begin, this video is going to talk about dieting, it's going to talk about disordered eating and food restriction. We're also going to touch on weight loss and fat phobia. If you feel like any of this might negatively affect you, just proceed with caution. Before we get into the meat and potatoes, forgive the pun, I would just like to thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. I launched my Squarespace site about a year and a half ago now, and I love it. It is just the easiest way I could have possibly built a site. And yet it looks so professional. I sell my presets on my site, I have my blog, I just recently did a post about all of my favorite non-alcoholic drinks, I will link it all below. And I also have an About Me page that functions as kind of a portfolio. You know, if someone wants to learn more about me, they can go there and everything is there for them. If you would also like to start a Squarespace site, you can get 10% off your first website or domain by going to squarespace.com/LucyMoon or using the code LucyMoon at checkout. I couldn't recommend it enough. I'll leave all the information in the description. So let's do a brief rundown of clean eating. In its simplest form, clean eating is a diet that consists of eating whole and unprocessed foods and avoiding foods that have been packaged or processed. So the history of clean eating is kind of muddy, but it seems that the first mention of eating clean was in 2007 by an influencer called Tosca Reno. She's a Canadian fitness coach and she released a book called The Eat Clean Diet. She talks about how she lost 34 pounds by avoiding overprocessed foods, flour and sugar. And from there, the term quickly took on a life of its own. It gained a lot of traction in the 2010s, with Colin naming it their word of the year in 2015. The key thing to note here is that clean eating does not have a clear definition. At the beginning, it was closely associated with veganism, but it's actually quite a broad term that's grown to include a lot of diets. Some people who identified as eating clean also ate meat, also ate fish, some also ate dairy, and there are spin-offs like Whole30, 80/20, and the alkaline diet. This also meant that it could be as restrictive as you wanted it to be. For example, a lot of clean eaters shunned gluten and went gluten-free. Madeline Shaw, who was one of the proponents of clean eating, a big influencer in the space, referred to gluten as sandpaper for the gut in one of her books. Many clean eaters were refined sugar-free, and some were even fat-free and oil-free too, which meant, yeah, no avocados, no nuts. I can't even imagine. Another common add-on was the detox. A classic clean eating fad. Detoxing is a feature of many diets, but in clean eating, it was popularized by everyone's favorite, Gwyneth Paltrow. But I don't want to put the whole blame on her. There were a lot of influencers peddling a detox. The Hemsley sisters encouraged it as well. And that's a diet that encourages you to kick off your diet with a juice cleanse. And coffee enemas. Yes, you heard that correctly. And the main thing you need to know about clean eating is that they did not call it a diet. They did not associate with the term diet. Clean eating placed emphasis on a holistic approach. Many called it a lifestyle change and chose to swerve conversations around weight loss, focusing instead on healing the body and alleviating symptoms. And some clean eaters even encouraged further changes like switching your household products to natural products and switching to natural beauty. And as you can imagine, this interpretation also leaned towards homeopathic remedies, natural remedies, and just generally alternative healthcare. And then that also led into fringe diets around Ayurvedic principles. And on the more extreme ends, clean eating lent into pseudoscience, implying that you would get well and heal from a clean diet. Clean eating also went hand in hand with fitness, although they weren't explicitly linked. When clean eating was embraced by fitness figureheads, it was considered a weight loss tool. So let's talk about the origins. Clean eating was by no means the first diet. In the 1800s, William Banting lost 50 pounds and wrote a letter of corpulence to convey his wisdom. I am glad I wasn't around for that. Diets have always functioned as trends, growing and waning in popularity. In the 1930s, the grapefruit diet gained popularity. In the 1950s, the cabbage soup diet gained popularity. And in the 1960s, Atkins low carb was all the rage. And diets also follow a trend cycle. You see low carb, for example, coming back in multiple forms. We've got paleo, we've got keto. You also find it with detox diets. The Master Cleanse is not that dissimilar to the cabbage soup diet, which is not that dissimilar to a juice cleanse. As I mentioned before, one of the first influential figures of the clean eating diet was Toscarino in 2007. But another pioneer of the movement was Alejandro Younger, who released Clean in 2009. Both books contained a manifesto of the clean eating way and a diet framed as a holistic way of life. Part of the reason clean eating gained so much success was through celebrity and influencer endorsements. Again, people who have typically promoted diets. In a way, it was a get out of jail free card. Celebrities and influencers could endorse clean eating, say it was a lifestyle change, a healthier choice that invited less criticism. One of the key figures in the rise of clean eating was Gwyneth Paltrow. You know, actor, wellness guru, you might have heard of her. In 2008, Gwyneth launched Goop, a wellness and lifestyle publication and brand. It started as an email newsletter where she just shared some recipes, but it grew, and it grew specifically into a brand selling a lot of counter-cultural wellness products. Maybe alternative wellness products would be a better way to describe them, actually. She was known for her purist approach to diet and lifestyle, leading into alternative therapies and wellness pursuits in the name of health after visiting a doctor and being told, let me check, that she was anemic, vitamin D deficient, and her stress levels were sky high. I don't know about you, but I can relate to that. In 2013, she released It's All Good, a book filled with recipes without, and I need to read this as well, coffee, alcohol, dairy, eggs, sugar, shellfish, deep water fish, wheat, meat, soy, or processed foods. I'm serious. Although they never specifically aligned with clean eating as a movement, Gwyneth and Goop are considered to kind of embody the principles of clean eating and to have brought it to a much wider audience, especially when it came to their endorsement of detoxes. Gwyneth loved a detox. Let's talk about Deliciously Ella, otherwise known as Ella Mills. She's a blogger, now an entrepreneur, who started eating clean after she found out she had POTS. Her recipes and writing quickly gained traction on her blog, Deliciously Ella, and she gained a huge Instagram following and published multiple books. The intro to her first cookbook is actually wild. She shares that she was encouraged to quit meat, dairy, sugar, gluten, and all additives and chemicals after reading a bunch of forums and blog posts. And in less than 2 years after switching her diet, she came off all of her medication and felt completely healed. That is a direct quote. The book sold 32,000 copies in its first week, making it one of the fastest selling cookbooks ever. It might still hold the record. Not everyone was vegan though, and the Hemsley sisters is a strong example of two influential figures in the clean eating movement who encouraged the consumption of meat, specifically bone broths and stuff like raw milk. What is raw milk? I couldn't tell you. The Hemsley sisters in particular credited the GAPS diet for a lot of the inspiration for their recipes. As clean eating became more established, new faces popped up on social media, utilizing the ever-expanding reach of YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter to share their recipe ideas, workouts, and lifestyle changes. As clean eating gained popularity in the mid-2010s, fringe movements emerged, including raw veganism and fruitarianism, such as Freely the Banana Girl, who insisted to her audience of hundreds of thousands that she ate 50 bananas a day. On the forum on her site, there were posters saying that they were incredibly fatigued and losing their hair. Comments she furiously denied were related to them taking up her diet. People who were not experts suddenly had authority because they had followers, which enabled them to say more and share more, thus increasing their popularity and giving them more authority. It was a bad cycle. An example of this is Nina and Randa, two sisters who claimed that their vegan, oil-free diet was the thing that cleared up their acne. Their audience was made up of thousands of teenagers also struggling with their acne and looking for advice. It turns out that they were advised by the controversial Dr. McDougall, who had worked closely with their mum. He is frequently criticised by other professionals for not including any evidence-based research in his recommendations. And then there was this interesting dynamic that developed where the audience would actively police the influencers. If they saw influencers eat meat who had never even claimed to be vegan, they would criticize them in the comments. Influencers would then only show clean meals online as to not anger their audiences, further perpetuating the clean eating and glamorizing it. There was a cognitive dissonance among the influencers who peddled clean eating. A lot of them insisted that they didn't have restrictive diets and that they had a healthy relationship with food, all while peddling cookbooks and making a lot of money out of showing themselves eating very little. Alice Living is a fitness coach and influencer who released a book called Clean Eating Alice. And she said, of course, the term clean eating is subjective and can mean different things to different people. But for me, it's about developing a healthy relationship with food. I don't restrict myself or feel like I'm dieting as such, but now I feel I've learned how to best fuel my body with tasty and nutritious food. Having a balanced approach to eating means treating myself too, as I just couldn't live without my ice cream fix. The clean eating diet fundamentally changed the way we eat. If you walked into your local supermarket, you'd notice that Deliciously Ella had her own range. Everything had coconut oil and date syrup in it, touted as healthy alternatives to oil and sugar, whilst just being more oil and more sugar. And new clean products started popping up everywhere. Previously sidelined grains and veggies gained enormous popularity. Quinoa, chia seeds and avocados made their way into everyday cooking for middle-class households. New tools emerged as well. The popularity and rise of courgette pasta encouraged people to buy spiralizers, which I believe were an Amazon bestseller for a while. And the NutriBullet blender was hugely popular, known for its smoothie making power and efficiency. A 2017 UK survey by the Food Standards Agency found that 4 in 10 16 to 25-year-olds had tried clean eating. However, the golden years could not last forever. Gradually, the tide started to turn. Vice published an article by Ruby Tando, a chef and food writer who struggled with disordered eating in relation to clean eating. In 2014, Jordan Younger of The Blonde Vegan wrote a blog post called Why I'm Transitioning Away from Veganism, where she spoke about how her periods had stopped and her skin tinged orange by the extremes that she had taken clean eating to. By the end of her clean eating, the only carbs she was eating were carrots and sweet potatoes. She started introducing fish to her diet and received a lot of backlash. Her followers felt betrayed, especially because she built a business off her clean eating and lifestyle. In an interview in 2015, Nigella Lawson referred to clean eating as body fascism. Food is not dirty, she said on Radio 4 Women's Hour. Even Ella Mills, our clean eating queen, removed the term clean eating from her entire website. Later down the line, she would say, I also don't subscribe to the concept of healthy eating being about clean eating. The Guardian did a great article talking to a number of experts who said that the fixation with healthy eating was a gateway into eating disorders. And then gradually, the term clean eating fell out of favour. So what does it mean, fundamentally, to be clean? Let's get into our GCSE literature mode and unpack the term. Labelling anything clean creates a false dichotomy and adds moral value to something. If a food is not clean, is it dirty? And using the term clean or clean eating in your marketing doesn't seem to be regulated in most countries. Any food can market itself as clean, and marketers use it to imply purity. If you are the clean product, then the competitors are dirty, in the hopes of making them seem less desirable. And as you can imagine, the moralizing of food through clean eating has some interesting sociological impacts. The behaviours and mentality around clean eating embody a lot of historic ideals around womanhood and femininity. Discipline, thinness, perfection. The public face of the movement was unquestionably female, with the familiar face of a rich white woman staring back at you on the front of every cookbook. Clean eating tapped into this perpetual female anxiety about doing things right, specifically doing everything right, and the pressure to be achieving near perfection in every aspect of life. You could see this embodied in lots of the rhetoric around clean eating. This idea of a glow from within was peddled hugely throughout the movement. I think this is why clean eating spoke to young women so much. It was written in their language and offered an antidote to their fears around control and the future. The early 2010s was also a time of leaning in, a concept popularized by Sheryl Sandberg, who wrote a book of the same name. She was the former COO of Facebook. Her book, Lean In, encouraged an individualist approach to tackling structural sexism and systemic inequality. Grow your confidence and smash your personal glass ceiling. Clean eating adopted this trending attitude and applied it to health. The clean eating influencers were so successful because they made this perfection look easy and achievable. It was a fantasy styled as reality. And we just weren't as discerning as we are now about Instagram versus reality or the work that it takes to be a content creator. We as consumers failed to see that not only was this a personal journey, but also a business for a lot of these influencers. And forgive the pun, it would be sugar-coated to show these women in these perfect lives glowing from the inside out. Literary agent Zoe Ross told The Guardian in 2017 that in 2015, she began to notice that the market was sourcing Instagram for copycat acts, specifically very pretty, very young girls pushing curated food and lifestyle. It was a business. It was a business. Unsurprisingly, these pressures that accompanied this clean eating diet led many people to fall down an eating disorder pipeline. Orthorexia is an obsession and fixation on healthy eating. Although the term is not officially recognised by the DSM yet, it is understood among specialists. In a quick Google, so many articles came up of people talking about their own stories of starting clean eating and how it descended into orthorexia for them. Cutting out whole food groups, being afraid to eat out of the house, and having this overwhelming fear of losing control were just some of the experiences I saw documented in these articles. More research has been done on orthorexia in the advent and the fall of clean eating, and often those terms go hand in hand in academic journals. As you can imagine, with something that increases disordered eating, it also comes along with a fair bit of fat phobia. Low body fat and weight loss have long been seen as an indicator of good health, something that the clean eating movement was clearly striving for. All of the female influencers who peddled the clean eating movement had proximity to thinness all within themselves. And the language of morality and purity held connotations that fatness was dirty and bad. Strangely, the clean eating movement also adopted a lot of the lingo that was coming out of the then quite new body positive movements and the self-care movements at the time, but they made it fit all the other clean eating ideals. If I love my body, I will go to these lengths. Again, creating that association with weight loss and loving your body. As always, it was dieting in a new package. Counting calories and macros was out. But ultimately, if you were only eating whole foods, how could you possibly overeat? The strict good and bad parameters limited your food consumption by design. Moving on to the meaty stuff, wealth and class. This in itself could be a whole video, but I'll try and make it brief. Clean eating had an elitist edge, both in terms of accessibility and aesthetic. Like many diets, it was designed to be exclusionary. The space of white, rich women. While it can be argued that vegetables and whole grains are cheap, there was an emphasis on avoiding processed foods, having time to cook these laborious meals. This is all wrapped in privilege. It's not something that's realistic if every day you work long hours, you have small children, you're the sole earner of your house, or if you do shift work. And then think about all the glorified additional extras. Chia seeds, protein powders. These are all stocked in places like Whole Foods or like niche organic grocery stores, and all of those come with a premium price. You knew an influencer was affluent when you watched a What I Eat in a Day and they opened a cupboard full of all of these lotions and potions. And if you need data to back that up, Consumer Reports say that organic foods cost around 40% more than non-organic foods. I found a wonderful quote from Professor Judy Swift, who is a researcher in behaviour and nutrition at the University of Nottingham. How can you expect people to be planning long-term health initiatives when they have highly stressful, short-term problems and are more concerned about how they're going to last day to day? Ultimately, clean eating was a class issue. This is where, to me, it gets extra meaty. Influencers like Ella Mills sold clean eating as a tool for physical empowerment. Take your health into your own hands. The implication was that clean eaters would gain more than just their health. They would have this glow from within, this inner vitality. Some have argued that this embodied that capitalist feminism attitude that we talked about earlier with Sheryl Sandberg, and that was gaining popularity in response to austerity. Specifically in the UK, we had a decade of austerity under the Conservative government and just the general decline of the welfare state. Glamorizing health as a personal responsibility instead of a public good, and turning it into a business opportunity. It was not a surprise that clean eating was created and popularized by class-privileged women who depend less on public health initiatives and often reap the benefits of capitalism. On an international scale, the impact that the rise and popularity of clean eating foods had on developing countries was less than ideal. For example, quinoa for Bolivian and Peruvian consumers, who had to shoulder the increasing costs of what had been a nutritious and affordable staple of their diet. Mexican forests were destroyed to plant more avocado trees, which is obviously awful, and capitalism setting things on fire as usual. There is so much more that I could say about these socioeconomic dynamics, but ultimately I just want to illustrate that the clean eating movement was built on a foundation of privilege and thus was exclusionary by nature. Again, I found a great quote in The Guardian from 2016. While the vagueness of clean eating may seem like a drawback, it's what made the trend so popular. Anyone, you see, can pick up a diet book and follow a diet, but clean eating is less about the food itself and more about the people eating it. Eating clean requires that you yourself are clean, that you're someone who shops at Whole Foods and goes to the right exercise classes and wears the right things. Clean eating is a club for those who are in the know. It is not a meal plan. Before we continue with the video, I'd just like to say if you're enjoying it so far, it would be amazing if you could give it a like. I love making these video essays, and if you like them, they reach more people, and I would really appreciate it. So what was the legacy of clean eating? Well, one could argue that just like many diets, it hasn't left. It's just evolved. After the term clean eating fell out of favor, some new diets that were adjacent to clean eating emerged, and they seem to have been inspired by the movement. Some believe that clean eating kicked off a second wave of diet culture, an age where diets are not diets. They promise better health instead of weight loss, but they ultimately always link back to restriction. Clean eating sparked a shift of diet culture as a status symbol and what it represents about you. Let's talk about the wellness movement. Is it clean eating's sister. In 2023, wellness is the current popular term for healthy eating and lifestyle change. However, in my opinion, it's similarly coded to clean eating. A lot of content about purity, idealism, health, and goodness. Again, we could make a whole video about wellness, but I'm just going to give you the cliff notes. Wellness was a term coined in 1950 by Halbert Dunn, an American physician. He had a vision of health as maximizing an individual's potential. It was a broad term that encompassed healthy relationships, personal fulfillment, and optimum health. But it's come a long way since then. In 2022, McKinsey estimated that the global wellness market was worth $1.5 trillion. McKinsey's research shows that we think of wellness across 6 dimensions: better health, better fitness, better nutrition, better appearance, better sleep, and better mindfulness. Notice how broad these dimensions are. They encompass a lot of aspects of health, but also beauty, which was not in Dunn's initial definition. Wellness is based on health. It's the opposite of illness. But would we be striving for this optimized perfect health if it did not also come with weight loss, lovely clear skin, and shiny hair? And from a business perspective, something needed to replace clean eating. As we've established, the market for clean eating and wellness is huge because there's a status and aspirational element motivating consumers to participate. When you dive further into wellness, you also find these micro trends, and they just so clearly embody the consumerist element of wellness and lifestyle change. The that girl lifestyle, the clean girl lifestyle, they're so closely associated with wellness and carry a lot of the baggage that comes with the wellness movement too. And they really are a continuation of the clean eating aesthetic. They're these perfect day in the life videos, what I eat in a day videos, my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5. It's all perfect. Morning and the evening routines, Sunday resets, the list goes on. And there is always a subtle focus on products, supplements, workout gear, beautiful homes full of beautiful things. In my opinion, wellness is like clean eating's less problematic sister. The harsh edges have been smoothed and it's even more vague. An umbrella term that keeps people, especially women, shopping to achieve an unattainable ideal. Again, it creates security with the illusion of control. If I work harder, I'll secure my health, I'll secure my appearance, without considering outside factors, much like clean eating. Let's talk about Noom, a diet app in a post-clean eating world. The app aggressively markets itself as anti-diet and claims it teaches users behavioral changes instead of giving them restrictive rules. It taps into the clean eating market by reaching people who believe that they're looking for overall health as opposed to weight loss. And to an extent, it worked. The app was valued at $4.2 billion by the Wall Street Journal in 2021. However, after signing up and taking the introductory quiz, which will cost you $59 a month, you are given a calorie count to follow. And foods are labeled with a nice little traffic light system. But according to their marketing, no foods are off limits. The maths isn't working. Something is not adding up. I assumed Noom would probably have been founded by some slightly conservative-leaning health experts. But no, it was actually founded in 2008 by Sajju Zhong, an entrepreneur who studied electrical engineering, and Artem Petakov, a former Google software engineer. They spent a decade trying other businesses and failing, but the Noom weight loss app was a winner. Noom taps into all the wellness marketing and clean eating rhetoric around food, adding in new wellness elements like mindfulness to really amp up the hard sell. But when you scratch the surface, it's just another calorie-based version 1 diet. Modern marketing, same old diet culture. This one might be a little bit controversial, so bear with, but it's okay. We're up for discussions in the comments, all is well. So the fitness industry managed to avoid a lot of the clean eating criticism, and I wonder if that was because it was male dominated. However, clean eating still thrives in those communities, sometimes under a different name, but generally unadulterated. A study published in June 2017 found that 22% of men aged 18 to 24 reported muscularity-orientated disordered eating. When you search for men's food advice, you will get a wealth of information embodying clean eating ideals. We're talking advice on macro counting, cutting, and only eating carbs before a workout. And in a very similar search, you can also find a number of articles of men talking about how this culture drove them to eating disorders. The mechanisms are so similar to clean eating, even down to the types of foods that are recommended that men consume. Obviously, it's not just for men, but a lot of this is targeted at men. We're talking egg white omelets, quinoa, and overnight oats. And again, on the surface, it's all about optimizing health and consuming nutrient-dense foods. But under the surface, To me, it looks like good old clean eating. Finally, let's talk about biohacking. This is another one that I feel is slightly more male. Biohacking is DIY biology for improving your health, performance, and wellness. It's a niche community of mainly men who talk about this online, and it's gained a small but dedicated following. There are accessible forms of biohacking like intermittent fasting and meditating, but there's also a tech-focused, more extreme version which involves like implanting microchips and using new devices to adjust their brainwaves. Proponents include successful men like Tony Robbins and Jack Dorsey, who founded Twitter. And again, it has this diet and weight loss lean. Ice baths to burn fat, sending your DNA off to doctors who insist they can give you an amazing diet based on your genetics. It just takes the optimizing health trend and cranks it up 15 notches. But again, still has many similarities to clean eating, including the exclusivity, the perfectionism, and the individualist approach to health. But despite all of these trends, there is a pushback movement. It's led by experts as opposed to gurus. On TikTok and Instagram, you can find doctors, qualified professionals, dietitians, nutritionists creating content debunking these diet myths and advising people on how to eat based on scientific evidence. This new movement is also a lot more diverse. Two popular creators in this niche are Dr. Ids and Nutrition by Kylie. It's refreshing to see creators that aren't white in this health and wellness space. And in this expert health niche, there are many, many more. They sit in a middle ground. They acknowledge that health is very important, but they also show themselves eating packaged or processed foods. And most importantly, well-seasoned foods. If you watched any clean eating content in the 2010s, you will know that no one seasoned their food. It was so bad. They're using oil to cook and they're showing diverse meals without restriction. But my question is, where does this cross back into pseudoscience? And how do you know that your experts are really experts? Our understanding of the gut microbiome is still in its infancy, and there's a lot we don't know. But there are already many non-experts appearing in the same feeds as the experts, and they're offering advice on how to heal your gut. Some focus on hormone-regulating diets, glucose-regulating diets, and again, this gut microbiome diet stuff. How can we know some of these diets are backed by research? Some interpret these people as experts because they communicate in the same way and use the same formats as the experts, when really they're just people with an interest in food who now have a financial incentive to reel you in. I've seen gut health influencers offer that same clean eating advice of only shop on the perimeter of the supermarket. I think that as this niche develops, the true experts are going to have to walk a very fine line and avoid some of the trending terminology as it gets weighed down by these other creators. Did we learn anything? Clean eating still ultimately exists, but fewer people identify with clean eating because it received such bad press in the late 2010s. For people who are clean eating sympathetic or adjacent, diet movements have since appeared that fill that void. They're effectively clean eating, but in a new cast. Clean eating kicked off the Diet Movement 2.0, which focuses on optimizing health. However, a lot of it is just thinly veiled weight loss. But there is hope, and these new creators that have emerged are pushing back. And there's a rising number of qualified medical creators now, and they're encouraging things like intuitive eating. As avid consumers of wellness culture, we're going to have more and more trouble in the future differentiating between the actual experts and the self-styled experts. Everyone can claim a credential and seem very legitimate offering diet and lifestyle advice. So we've just got to keep our wits about us. Guys, I've been filming for an hour and a half and we're done. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a like, please subscribe. I make one video essay a month. I do a little bit of lifestyle content and a little bit of video essays. Gotta love it. She's a well-rounded individual. Thanks again to Squarespace. If you would like to start building your first site, the link is in the description. I just want to say thanks so much for watching. Let's continue the conversation in the comments and let me know what you'd like to see me talk about next. And I will see you in my next video. If you'd like something else to watch, I just made a video all about why elf bars are so addictive, and you can find that somewhere on the screen now.